Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Jai Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Jai Bhakti 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 Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Reading from Shri Prabhupada Lilamrita. Chapters entitled New Jagannath Puri. The dancing was free-form and sensuous, but that was the way these young people expressed their feelings through their bodies. They bounced and bounded into the air. Sometimes the circle of dancers would break and become a single line, weaving in and out among the people sitting on the ground. In and out among the silk flags. A muscular boy held the hand of a girl wearing long dark braids and a black headband in American Indian style. At the end of the line, a boy held a girl's hand with his left hand, while his right, he held a wooden recorder to his mouth and tooted as he weaved in and out of the crowd. Prabhupada became tired and sat beside the brass-bottomed timpani, singing and playing khattals. He sat grave and straight like an ancient sage. Nearby, a blonde woman sat in a yogic posture, bending her body forward until her forehead touched the ground again and again, in supplication or exhibition. Another girl stretched out a hand imploringly in a mixed expression of inner feelings, physical and spiritual, while her golden earrings jangled. A Mexican in a checkered shirt beat a tom-tom. A white sheepdog wandered from person to person. Swamiji looked kind and amused. The hippies found him beautiful. He remained gentlemanly, aloof amid the twisting, shaking, rocking, dancing young people. Amid their more sensual movements, he appeared not at all like them, for he moved in a stately, elderly way. He surveyed the activities in the meadow. He seemed deeply pleased to see the ring of dancers singing all around him, chanting Hare Krishna. Although the enthusiasm of these hippies was often wild and sensual, the gathering assumed a wholesome sweetness due to the chanting of Hare Krishna. For Swamiji, the main thing was that the chanting was going on and on. Dressed in a saffron cloth, what seemed to change color subtly in the fading afternoon light, he watched in a kindly, fatherly way, not imposing any restraint, but simply inviting everyone to chant Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada, Shri Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Kinda Vanata Yamuna Kinda Vanata Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Shri Gauritai, Shri Radha Giridhari, Jai Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, Jai Shri. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishti. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 29th chapter. Text 70 is chapter entitled Talks Between Narada and King Prachinabhaga. Naham Mameti Bhavo Yam Naham mameti bhavoyam
Naham mameti bhavoyam
purushe vyavadhiyate. Purushe vyavadhiyate yavad buddhi mano shatta. Yavad buddhi mano shatta guna vyuho hi anadiman. Guna vyuho hi anadiman. Naham mameti bhavoyam purushe vyavadhiyate yavad buddhi mano shatta guna vyuho hi anadiman. Naham mameti bhavoyam purushe vyavadhiyate yavad buddhi mano shatta guna vyuho hi anadiman. Naham mameti bhavoyam purushe vyavadhiyate yavad buddhi mano shatta guna vyuho hi anadiman.
Naham mameti bhavoyam
Naham mameti bhavoyam purushe vyavadhiyate guna vyuho hi anadiman. Naham mameti bhavoyam purushe vyavadhiyate yavad buddhi mano shatta guna vyuho hi anadiman. Naham mameti bhavoyam purushe vyavadhiyate yavad buddhi mano shatta guna vyuho hi anadiman. Naham mameti bhavoyam purushe vyavadhiyate yavad buddhi mano shatta guna vyuho hi anadiman. Repeat the synonyms. Na, not. Aham, I. Mama, mine. Iti, thus. Bhava, consciousness. I am this. Purushe, in the living entity. Yavadhiyate, is separated. Yavat, so long. Buddhi, intelligence. Mana, mind. Aksha, senses. Artha, sense object. Guna, of the material quality. Vyuha, a manifestation. He, certainly. Anadiman, the subtle body, existing since time immemorial. We see the translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Jai. Translation: as long as there exists the subtle material body, composed of intelligence, mind, senses, sense objects, and the reactions of the material qualities, the consciousness of false identification and its relative objective, the gross body, exists as well. The desires in the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego cannot be fulfilled without the gross body, composed of the material elements, earth, water, air, fire, and ether. When the gross material body is not manifest, the living entity cannot factually act in the modes of material nature. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the subtle activities of the mind and intelligence continue due to the sufferings and enjoyments of the living entity's subtle body. The consciousness of material identification, such as I and mine, still continues because such consciousness has been extant from time immemorial. However, when one transfers to the spiritual world by virtue of understanding Krishna consciousness, the actions and reactions of both gross and subtle bodies no longer bother this. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakram Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutta Padakamadam Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambita He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopika Kanto Radha Kantan Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Om Vishnu Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishna Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravanti Shari Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Mukhalam Karoti Vachali Pangum Langayati Patamaham Bande Shri Guru Harinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Hare Krishna. Today we continue discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastimes, well, the discussions between Narada Muni and King Krishna Bharti. Narada Muni is the ideal spiritual master. So he's given a very elaborate allegorical story of Puranjana. And then his disciple still doesn't understand, he's asking for clarification. So he gives more clarifications. And you can see how the spiritual master is willing to, he's very determined to make sure that we understand and we go back to God. Sometimes the spiritual master is so much more determined than ourselves. We are not that serious, but the spiritual master is given a promise that this person is surrendered to me. If he follows his end of the bargain, my end of the bargain is I have to bring him back to God in somehow or other. So he keeps, in many different ways, trying to explain to King Krishna Bharti. So we heard this allegorical story of Puranjana, and this chapter starts off with him, the king asking again, and he's describing the salient points in that allegorical story. And it starts off with more gross things, the gross material body, and then he starts coming to the more subtle things. In the last few verses, we're seeing more subtle aspects. So he describes how Puranjana represents, he talks about Puranjani, the city of 9 gates. He talks about the false ego, the wandering of the jiva, and how the false identification with this material body gives rise to so many different types of bodies. Then he gives the example of how a dog is wandering from house to house. Some houses, the dog might be given nice leftover prasad. In another house, the dog might be kicked or insulted or beaten. So like this, we're going from one life to another life, like the dog. It says how we are trying to counteract the threefold misery. He describes like how we carry, when you're carrying a heavy load on one shoulder and it hurts, so you transfer it to another shoulder. And then when that hurts, you transfer it back. So this is going on life after life. Someone's intelligent, he'll just take off the whole load instead of just shifting it from one shoulder. And Narada Muni also explains how to counteract this. He says, if someone is in a dreaming state, you cannot break the dream with another dream. That's also a dreaming state. So if someone's dreaming, the way to get him out of the dream is to wake him up. And he describes the process of waking up is to perform the process of bhakti. Then he also mentions that it should be done through the representative, Krishna, the spiritual master. And he describes how to do that bhakti. He talks about how we should hear and who we should hear from. He talks about hearing from pure devotees, in the association of pure devotees. Then he says, you can actually then see the Lord through your ears by hearing about Krishna's pastime from the pure devotees. He says, otherwise there's no chance of seeing. Then he says, so again he says, where can Krishna Katha be found? That's in the place where broad-minded pure devotees who themselves are hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna, where they are found, you can hear Krishna Katha. And then he tells Krishna Bharati to end his materialistic sacrifices. He gives another very nice allegory. It's a very short allegorical story, the story of the deer. So he describes how there's a deer in a beautiful garden, playing with its female deer. And then there are all these honeybees buzzing and beautiful flowers, nice fragrance. While all this is going on, there's a tiger right in front of him waiting to eat him up. And that is time. And behind him, there's a hunter with an arrow waiting to shoot him, and that is death. So he's describing the living entities are like that. We're enjoying ourselves with our wives, our partners, our husbands. And then there are all these children like the bees buzzing, the beautiful flowers, our property, our houses, so many things. And we're so caught up with that, we don't realize at any moment, time is passing, and any moment, death is right behind. So he says, don't waste. Prabhupada gives verse from Bhagavatam, Labdha sudurlabham idam bahu sambhavanti. Said after many, many lifetimes, this human birth is very rare. After many lifetimes, we've come to this human platform of life, which gives us the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. So one who is sober, he should quickly endeavor for ultimate perfection. At that point, King Krishna Barishat, he said, I've heard from so many others. They've mentioned some different things, but you have mentioned, what you mentioned makes sense. So he surrenders to him and accepts him. You're a real guru. Then he had one doubt. He said, when you say this karma is transferred, whatever you do in this life, you enjoy or suffer in the next life. But how do I understand this? Because all the suffering and what I'm doing is part of this body. The next life I have a different body. How does this transfer? And then Narada Muni speaks about the subtle body, of which the mind is the most important. And this section talks about the mind. And I think over the last few weeks, many devotees have spoken about very intricate details about the mind. In this verse, he talks about the gross body itself, and why the gross body, no, sorry, the subtle body, and why the subtle body actually needs a gross body. And the identification, the false identification of the subtle body, which is I and mine, aham mameti. So we understand that the subtle body carries all the impressions from our previous life, all our unfulfilled desires. And in order for that desires to be manifest, for it to fulfill the desires, it needs a material body. For example, if we have the subtle body wants to eat some pizza. So we have to, in order to eat pizza, you need, well, either you make it yourself. If you make it yourself, you need your hands, you need to go to the shop, buy the ingredients, you need a house, you need to bake it, you need a mouth to eat it, you need to digest. So without the material body to do those things, the subtle body can only have the desire and it's unfulfilled. So the subtle body needs a physical body for those desires to be fulfilled. So it's described that when someone leaves the body, then the subtle body leaves that gross body, and depending on we understand from Bhagavad Gita what the person thinks of at the time of death, that body he attains. But then not everyone attains a subtle body. There are some souls that, not everyone attains a gross body after giving up this material body. So there's some souls that are stuck in the subtle body. And Prabhupada describes there are a few instances where that happens. One is someone is very, very sinful, or someone leaves their body before their time is up. So if someone commits suicide, takes their own life, then that subtle body has to remain in that area until the time is due, then it takes another gross body. So during that time, the subtle body, we can understand, needs to fulfill its desires, but it doesn't have a gross body. So it creates havoc. So you have instances where the Prabhupada calls the subtle body like a ghost body. So the ghost can possess someone in order to fulfill the desires. That was in Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's pastimes. It's a famous story of a ghost that was living in a tree and was helping all the dacoits. The ghost would possess the magistrate. And whenever the dacoits would do something bad and they go before the magistrate won't punish them. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted to get rid of this ghost. So he employed, I think some Brahmana came begging, and he gave him his job to sit in front of that tree, the banyan tree, and read Srimad Bhagavatam. Maybe for about a month, the Brahmana was reading, and after a month, when he finished the Bhagavatam, the tree fell and the ghost disappeared. There was another pastime that happened in more recent times. So I'm sure everyone's got some stories about ghosts and subtle bodies. But so this is spiritual pastime. So there's one saintly person. His name is His Holiness Bhakti Swarup Damodar Swami. He travels to. He's no longer physically present in this material world. But he used to travel to Indonesia, and in Indonesia there are a lot of these instances of subtle bodies, and there are people who actually can speak with these subtle bodies, and they deal with these subtle bodies. So one time he was giving a lecture in a temple somewhere, maybe in Bali. As he was speaking, so it's a big hall, lots of devotees, and then he was looking at the entrance. There was no one there at the entrance, but he was looking at the entrance and he was talking. So he gave a very powerful class, ecstatic kirtan. He's a very amazing kirtaniya. So at the end, then he said, you're all very fortunate. You all have physical bodies, but there are many others who don't have physical bodies and they're struggling. It's part of the class. There's so many points. This is one of the points. So next day, one local who had a property next to the temple, he came and he was asking the devotees, what was happening yesterday at your temple? So we had a visiting a saintly person from India. He was giving some lectures, we were doing some kirtan. I said, why do you ask? So he is a person who deals with all these ghosts, and in his property, he's got hundreds of subtle bodies living there. So he said, but last night, what happened? All of these subtle bodies had left and they had come to your temple. And the devotees went. And so that's what they were saying when Maharaj was talking and he was looking at the door. So he could see these subtle bodies. And he was saying how fortunate you all are that you have material bodies, but there are these subtle bodies you can't. These subtle bodies, is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. But all of that is material. The subtle body covers the soul. The soul is completely spiritual. And what was going on is Krishna Katha and Krishna's names, and that is completely spiritual. So even though they don't have a material body, but because the soul is there and that is spiritual, it gets attracted to spiritual something. So I'm sure many of us would have had experience of these subtle bodies. So we understand the subtle body needs a gross body in order to fulfill its desires. Now, the subtle body consists, like we described, it has mind, intelligence, and false ego. And this gives rise to the material identification of I and mine. And this has been going on from time immemorial. In the beginning, we decided, why should Krishna be the enjoyer? I want to be the enjoyer. I want to be the master. And everything is meant for my enjoyment. So we decided to enjoy separately from Krishna. So that's when this false ego started. This false ego saying, I am the enjoyer. Everything is mine for my enjoyment. And that starts our journey in this material world. So this I and mine started with the false ego. And since then, whenever the subtle body comes in contact with the gross body, it thinks, I am this body. I am Indian, I'm male, I'm Fijian, I'm Hindu. And so many other upadhis, so many other designations. And then from there, it branches out. I am, whoever my material name is Kanana, and that's my wife, this is my family, this is my house, my property, my work, my country, my community, my religion. So like this, mine. And King Rishabhadev is teaching his sons. He's saying, how does this I and mine come about? So he describes this verse, the last line, I think everyone will be quite familiar, is Janasya mohoyam aham mameti. So this false identification of I and mine comes because of moha, illusion. Again, the illusion that I am this body. I am whichever body you're in. And due to this illusion, we start identifying everything I and mine, and we keep being bound in this material world. And this continues in Bhagavad Gita. It's explained, Prakriti kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasa ahankara vimudatma tataham iti maniti. So out of false ego, the soul thinks that I am the doer of the activities, but actually they are being carried out by Krishna through the modes of material nature. Prabhupada explains, he uses the word predominator. He says, everyone wants to be the predominator. We don't want to be predominated. But in true fact, we are predominated at every step, whether we accept it or not. There was a famous boxer by the name of Muhammad Ali. I guess his Karmi name was Cassius Clay before he became Muhammad Ali. So after he retired from boxing, some devotees went to do an interview. Through the interview, they went through different parts of his life, and then they came to, oh, Mr. Ali used to say that you're the greatest. Can you tell us something about that? He said, yes, I was the greatest. But, what but? He said, I was the greatest, no doubt, but I was actually the greatest fool. Said, what? Why do you say that? You're the greatest boxer of all time. He said, no. See, I was thinking, I am so great. He could knock out anyone. He said, now I've got this disease. It's called Parkinson's disease. So even if I want to scratch myself, I can't, so I've got no control over myself. So he said, I'm the greatest fool. Actually, I'm not the controller. There's someone greater than me, someone who's controlling. So whether we like it or not, we are predominated. But we like to think we're the predominated. So how to overcome this I and mine mentality? Narada Muni gives us the earlier verses. He tells us how to do this. So we understand that Janasya Moho Aham Mameti is because of illusion. Illusion is like darkness, or like when you're sleeping, you're in illusion. You don't know what's going on. And Narada Muni explains, if someone's dreaming, how do you break the dream? Not with another dream. So if you're already in illusion, you can't give the person another illusion. If someone's dreaming, you have to wake him up. And what's the best way to wake up a person? Because we have so many senses. It's described that one sense is always strong, even when you're sleeping. If you put some nice fragrant flowers in front of your nose, you're not going to wake up. Put something beautiful in front of your eyes. You can touch, but I don't know, if you tried waking up someone who's in deep sleep, you can knock them, hit them, and they still won't wake up. But sound, if there's any slight sound, you can wake up. But you have the alarm ringing in your ears. So the best way to wake a person up is through the ears. So therefore, Narada Muni talks about, he says the process of bhakti is the only way. And the best way to do that is by hearing. And we understand that the process of bhakti begins with hearing. It says Nitya Siddha Krishna, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kavanadi, Shravanadi Sutta Chitte Korahi. So this real knowledge is in everyone's heart. Krishna is in everyone's heart. But that has to be awakened by the process of Shravanadi, by the process beginning with hearing. So the process of hearing is the beginning of bhakti. And throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, earlier verses also, Narada Muni talks about hearing. Shrivatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. And hearing from whom? We understand it says Satam Prasangam Mama Virya Samyudav Bhavanti Hrit Karna Rasayana Kata Tajyoshanadas Apavargavatmani Shraddha Ratir Bhaktiranakarna. So it starts with hearing, by hearing from Satam, from those pure devotees. Then slowly this illusion is destroyed in our heart. And we go through the 9 stages of bhakti automatically, step by step. And Prabhupada says, one of the Bhagavatam purports, he said, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita is meant to deliver a person from the conception of I and mine. We can't run away from the fact that I and mine means one is an individual. And the soul is an individual. It's not impersonalist. The soul doesn't merge with the super soul. The soul always remains an individual. So how do we understand what is who is the real I and mine? Who is the real ego? We have false ego, ahankar, but we have the real ego. So what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains, and I'm sure we all know these verses that describe what a real ego is. What is our real position? Who are we? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking to Sanatan Goswami in Varanasi. And he's asking, he's taking a straw between his teeth, and he's telling he's a pure devotee, and he's going to Mahaprabhu and he's saying, Kayami, I don't even know who I am. What is my duty? All these villagers, they think I'm a great devotee, but actually I don't even know who I am. Please enlighten me. Mahaprabhu tells in this verse, Jivera Swarupoi, Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatashta Shakti, Veda Abheda Pratma. So says that's your eternal form, you are eternal servant of Krishna. So instead of saying, I am this, I am that, the real I is, I am servant of Krishna. I'm eternal servant of Krishna. And then what is mind? How does that mind change from material mind? This is my family, this is my house, this is my job, this is my car. We come to a point where Krishna is mine. I am eternal servant of Krishna. And Krishna is mine. Or everything that's mine actually belongs to Krishna. And it's described that is real liberation. One doesn't have to give up this subtle body in order to become liberated. Just understanding this, it says, Mukti hitva anyata rupam swarupena vivastiti. One understands his swarup, that who am I? What is my real ego? And that is liberation. And then you'll be, even though you're in the subtle body, you're liberated, because at the end of this body you'll have no more spirit, you'll have no more material desires, so you don't have to take another gross material body. You have spiritual desires, and therefore you get a spiritual body. And the process of purifying the subtle body, well, the process of bhakti, we understand the book process of bhakti automatically gives rise to two things, knowledge and renunciation. Vairagya vidya, nija bhakti yoga, siksha. So that real knowledge gets rid of the I. That I in this body gives you the knowledge of who you really are. And automatically that detachment comes, and the detachment gets rid of that mind component. This is mine, that is mine. Automatically you get detached. You understand that actually nothing belongs to me, everything belongs to Krishna. So we're already practicing this process of Krishna consciousness. We thought we'll discuss something a little practical. We've been practicing for different amounts of time. And we understand that, we understand theoretically at least that we're not this body, I am eternal servant of Krishna. But are we completely out of that I and mine mentality, even though we're practicing Krishna consciousness? Still, that amount of I and mine is still the head. And Prabhupada explains here that it is, we've been actually, it says from time immemorial we've been conditioned, we've been through so many different material bodies, we have accumulated so much of impressions and desires. So it's not going to go off immediately, but according to the amount that we are sincere, slowly that will get destroyed. We can see from most of us are Grahasthas here. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's got some nice bhajans in Sharanagati. And some of them talk about how a grihastha changes that material I and mind to spiritual I and mind. I brought the book, but I left it in the car. I'll just try to remember some of their translations. He says, nothing is mine, everything is Krishna's, I am Krishna's servant. He says, actually, the family, they're all your servants, and I'm just a manager looking after the household. Whatever money I'm earning, that's for you. I'm just doing it on behalf of you. He had so many other very nice the translations. But so that's how he looks. The Grihastha looks at everything as belonging to Krishna, and I'm just a servant. The family, they're Krishna's devotees. I'm just serving them on behalf of Krishna. I'm earning money on behalf to maintain Krishna's household, not my household. So that way we change our perspective into thinking that everything belongs to Krishna and we're just managing Krishna's property, Krishna's house. It doesn't belong to us. As we're trying to do this, there are other types of I and mind. So I and mind relates to material desire. So we've had this conditioning from time immemorial, so we can't easily get rid of that. On top of just the gross things that you have, desire for wealth, satisfying our different senses, we also have subtle desires. So this I and mind can also creep in. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described these as weeds in the process of bhakti. The bhakti creepers growing, they're these weeds that come out. And these are things like name, fame, adoration. And he describes that's one of the six. He talks about anatta, so the sixth one, the term, where you get these benefits from doing devotional service. Actually, when you're doing for some time, you develop some good qualities and someone praises you for that, or you get certain, in the process of doing devotional service, you get certain positions. And it's very easy. In the material world, if you work in a multinational company that's huge and the talent pool so much, in order to become a CEO or a director there would be sometimes next to impossible. It takes a lot of hard work. But in devotee community, it's such a small community. To become a leader of something, to become a director of something, to become a director of this, you have two people in charge or two people under you. So it's not very difficult. So we can easily get all these upadhis or positions, and sometimes that can give rise to I and mind. Oh, I am in charge of this. I'm kitchen in charge, and who I am. And then we start thinking, oh, this is my congregation, my temple, my bhakti vriksha, and that can start happening. And that can be quite, it's an impediment to chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So the 10th offense against chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is to not have complete faith in chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and to maintain some material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. So that becomes an offense against chanting. And then Bahujan Mukuriya Shavara Kirtana, Prabhupada Pai Krishna Paripurna. Even after chanting for millions of births, we will not be able to achieve desired success of Krishna. There's a nice story that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada gives to explain this. He talks about the marriage party. So in Kolkata, there was this rich man who was getting his son married to a girl in one of the villages, Shantipur. So they chose a very auspicious time, which happened to be like Brahma Muhurta time. They made all the plans, so they got a boatman to bring them across through the night. So they went in the evening when the sun was almost setting. And then they told the boatman, okay, look, everything's settled. We've got maybe 40, 50 people. We need to reach by this time tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. That's the most auspicious time. We have to get my son married off. Are you sure you can do that? He said, yeah, no problem, please. So everyone got on this big boat. And it was a huge boat, so he employed a few people to row the boat. The boatman told him, don't worry, I'll get you there by 4 o'clock. You just take rest. You've got a big day tomorrow, just relax. Don't worry about it. When you wake up, you'll be in Shanti. So the marriage party, everyone went to sleep and they're taking rest. And this boatman, they was rowing the whole night. And then the sun came up. And then there was a commotion. The boatman started shouting. There was a fight. The chief boatman went and said, what's going on? He said, oh, I've been rowing the whole night. He hasn't been rowing. That's why we haven't moved at all. So like that, they're fighting each other. Why hasn't the boat moved? And each one is blaming the other person. When they heard this, the marriage party, they woke up. And they came out and said, what's going on? I said, oh, we're still in the same place. We haven't left. And the father of the groom, he was fuming. So what's going on here? And he said, no. He said, you haven't done your job. I paid you so much money. I said, no, I've done my job. Look at these guys. They've been sweating and their muscles all aching. They've been rowing the whole night. So why is the boat not moving? And there was one old wise man there. Turned around, he looked and he said, I found out why. Because you haven't lifted the anchor. That's why the boat hasn't moved. And the father said, oh, now everything is wasted. The auspicious time is gone. Marriage is over. And that was the end of that marriage. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that our sadhana is like that. We're doing so much of sadhana, we're doing devotional service, rowing really hard. But if this material attachment, Prabhupada says you can't even have an iota of material attachment, then you have to come back to this material world. You can't go back to the spiritual world. So despite doing so much, if we have these attachments, if we can't lift up the anchor, then we will not be able to move. We won't be able to reach the goal. And he had that marriage party had a very fixed time, 4 o'clock, that Brahma, they had to get there for the auspicious time. And if you don't, then the whole thing was wasted. The marriage was called off. So similarly, this human form of life is very, very important. We've got a specific auspicious event to attend. And if we don't lift up this anchor, then we would have wasted valuable human life. So what is the remedy for this, giving up these last bits of material attachment that we have, I and mine? Again, as Narada Muni explained before, our only hope is in the association of devotees, hearing Krishna Katha, chanting Hare Krishna Maha. The association of not just devotees, but like-minded devotees. Devotees who've got the same idea as us. We can go out and go to a restaurant with devotees, but that's not the association. You're in the association, well, you're with devotees. But that association of devotees has got to keep us reminded of Krishna. So the association of like-minded devotees and the association of pure devotees. Always hearing Krishna Katha from them. And that's why pure devotees, they come to give us the association. Yes, we serve them, prasad, wash their feet. But the main thing is they want to speak, they want us to hear Krishna Katha from them. They want to give instructions, they want us to hear these instructions. There's a famous example of Srila Prabhupada when he went to Vrindavan to meet his spiritual master, and his spiritual master was going to leave the next day from Vrindavan. So he was giving a lecture in the evening, and the rest of the devotees from the Math, they were going on parikrama in Vrindavan. But Prabhupada and a few others, they stayed behind to hear from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And like that, many times when he's been to the Dham, he was to hear from his spiritual master, hear from his Dham. And then that was his qualification when he was when he was recommended for initiation. His godbrother told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he thought he was going to be introduced as, oh, and as Abhay Babu, he donated this much for the Allahabad temple or something. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he turned around and he said, yes, he hears very nicely. So that was his qualification. Hearing from the spiritual master and serving spiritual master's instruction. And then we can get the taste and chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We need to have that. There's one price to pay, described. That price is intense greed, laulyam. It says Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam Yadi Kuto Labhyate Tatra Laulyam Apimulyam Janma Koti Sukritena Labhyate. Even if you have pious credits from millions of births, you cannot purchase only by intense greed to hear from your devotees. So that way we can purify our material desires. Then whatever little bit of I and my that we have will be destroyed. And in the process, we'll still be in this material world, but liberated in the sense that at the end of this life, we'll have no more material desires to get a gross body and we go back to the spiritual world and get a spiritual world. Hare Krishna. So we'll end here. Devotees to share their realization or thoughts. You were at the doorway. That's why he's looking at the doorway and speaking. Yes. No. The demigods, they have a subtle body, but even their material body is subtle, it's not gross. No, the subtle body is just mind, intelligence, and falsehood. So the gross body is when you have made a material element, but they might not be visible to our material. But the subtle body is just mind, intelligence, falsehood. No, the subtle body only just refers to that. But then the gross body could be varieties of gross body. At least that's what anyone wants to do. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the demigods are still within the material, material realm. So because they're within the material realm, they must have material body.
No, the subtle body is material, the mind, intelligence, and falsehood. But they have to have a physical body as well, but just not visible to our eyes.
So the subtle body is enclosed in the physical body. It's like the content enclosed, you're not able to see it. But in this,
Martin is talking about the demigods. Like with the demigods, every day the demigods are here for the Aarti, Mangalarti, but we can't see them.
It says here, Brahma and other demigods.
Brahma and other demigods have a much better material bodies than human bodies.
They have gross, a bit.
No material bodies. They have material bodies.
Yeah. And the form is material. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in order for the
I don't know.
the subtle body has to have a, so in order for the demigods to enjoy, they need to have the gross body. So the subtle body will they have a gross body but not visible to different type of gross body. There's like if you Prabhupada says like in the sun you have those with fiery bodies. We may not be able to see that. So here we can see because we have earthly bodies we can have. So the demigods might have different constitution, but still made of material element. Because it's the subtle body that they have some desires, so they can go to the heavenly planet, but they have to take a. Whereas the ghost has got no. So someone desires to go to the heavenly planet, then he leaves this body, that subtle body will take a body in the heavenly planet. But their body might be different from the material body we see here in this earthly body. We'll find out from someone. Anyone else might have had some.
Experiences doesn't seem subtle.
Oh.
I had a question.
I had one question. You mentioned very nicely that we have to remove our attachments. And so those attachments, even though we engaged in Krishna consciousness, we have to remove those material attachments. But then the solution was also Krishna consciousness activities. So, like, what I mean is, maybe I.
So the question was, while we engage in Krishna consciousness, we might have attachments that are not allowing us to move forward in our Krishna consciousness. But the solution to that is Krishna consciousness. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, the solution to that was.
But it's like we want to move forward in our Krishna consciousness. If we still have everything.
So the way to cut those, it's Krishna consciousness, but a specific aspect of Krishna consciousness, which is hearing from the pure devotees, because they have got no attachment. So they can give us, again, pure devotional. We're not practicing pure devotional service, but mixed devotional service. But in the association of pure devotees, they have, when you associate with a renounced person, then automatically that just serving him, hearing from him, that vairagya mood will slowly come as well, because that's what they're talking about. They're not going to talk about material things or how to become more attached. They're always talking about how to become more detached. And Prabhupada Janmashtami in Vrindavan, he's saying, you're not this body. He's not saying Krishna has God. He's saying, you're not this body. So constantly they're hammering this particular point to us. So there are different aspects of devotional service, that particularly association of pure devotion. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam, Gajraj Srimad Bhagavatam, ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Yes, Grace Kadamba Kanana Prabhu. Okay.